Welcome everyone to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday, January the 15th, 2025. And if it's Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Man Speak. So let's give a shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when new shows are uploaded, which is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. The show starts at 8, and we upload the show to 5 platforms at 9 p.m. So please, if you're not here watching it live, go out and watch it, stream it later on. And if you haven't, if you're here watching the show live, make sure you invite a friend, a family member, or a coworker so you have something interesting to talk about for the rest of the week. So, Tom, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's do what we do best, which is bring the most leading edge information about the black community to the black community via social media.
all right,
We have
Jimmy,
our guests lined up for the night. So, who we have on board?
we have a returning guest, author, entrepreneur, technology strategist, and a bunch of other things that you'll learn a little bit more tonight. We've actually had him on before. Late last year, I believe it was December to be exact, to talking about vision and goal setting.
Right.
The great, the inimitable, the reputation precede him, Gregory Harrington. What's going
Oh,
on,
yeah,
brother?
Brother Harrington, many hats.
Let's talk
Welcome,
about it.
sir.
Let's speak about it. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about, man. Tell me
All
some
right,
stuff
man.
into
Happy New Year
existence.
to
I
you.
love that, man. I love it. I love it. That's how you bring somebody to the stage. Tell me, I ain't gonna even
That's
lie
how
to
you bring
you.
them to the
Hey,
stage.
somebody's got to do it right.
That's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Hey, so
All
whenever you,
right.
especially when you returning host, you know what I mean. That energy gonna come regardless. Hey, if nothing else, I'm gonna give you energy,
You
and
know
I'm
what?
definitely gonna give you some nuggets tonight. You know what I mean?
Amen. Amen. All right. So, for those of you who are out there who are already watching, I want to make sure that if you haven't done so already, go ahead and get on the chat line. Want to give a shout out to cousin Audrey K, who is on the chat line listening this evening. And I want to welcome other folks to join us on the chat line via our YouTube platform so that you can get in questions, get some of your answers, and make sure that we make this interactive so that you can get some value out of this. And Jimmy, one of the things we want to reinforce, what our strategy is for this year in terms of, what we have done on this platform and how we are going to focus moving forward into this year. So I'm going to let you share a little bit more about that.
Yes, we hit another milestone in 2024, reaching over 300,000 views collectively on all our platforms. We're still chasing for a million a month, so we need everyone to help out in that arena. But we definitely want to focus a little bit more on business development this year. Uh, we know that the wealth gap still exists. The only way we're going to close that wealth gap is we have to become a little more savvy about bringing goods and services to the marketplace. We can't continue to depend on others to supply everything that we need. And we end up with their products and they end up with our money. So we got to fix that paradigm so our money circulates within us and we start spending more of our money within us, with other people, within our group, so that way we can build wealth. For every dollar spent with another black person becomes another dollar of economic activity. When that dollar circulates throughout the black community, you generate multiple dollars of economic activity with $1 in. So, excuse me. So we need to focus a little bit more about bringing goods and services to the black community, and we can't expect other people to do that for us. So if we're going to get about this rut that we're in, then we have to roll our sleeves up, be willing to do the hard work, and we have Brother Harrington on, who's going to help us in this process. We're going to bring on more guests like him, very knowledgeable people who can help us ease that transition from consumer and spending our money to how to bring goods and services to the marketplace and make money.
Absolutely. So before we get started with the topic for discussion, we're going to allow Greg to share a little bit about himself. He did share a little bit about his background, what his expertise is, and what we're going to do is kind of use that as a prelude before we get into our topic of personal branding tonight. So I yield the floor to you, Brother Harrington, so you can share a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to join. 2025 is where we're not just gonna survive, but we're gonna thrive. You know what I mean?
Yes, we are.
That's what we're gonna do. So I want to make sure that we kickstart the year off right now with you all and sharing these nuggets that took me way too long to learn on my own. But thank God I finally got them. So I'm trying to give some people some shortcuts, fast pass to the front of the line, you know, to be able to get these nuggets and apply to their careers so they don't be overlooked or underpaid for career growth. That's what I'm trying to do from a personal brand perspective. The group that I'm with is B positive blood type. It's my business. And of course, some people say, well, we talking about blood type. Well, my blood type really is B positive. So we're speaking positivity into the heart.
Okay.
That's what we're doing here. We're speaking positivity in the heart. That's the name of my company that I have for my speaking and my training. But one of the things that oftentimes comes up is, how do you participate in this space called a career? How do you grow your own personal brand? A lot of times we're thinking about the small things that we see all the time, and you will see the McDonald's arches. You know what that means. A billion served. Even right now, I have not practiced this. If I start this off, Tommy or brother Stewart, I want y'all to finish. To all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce.
Cheese, onion on a
Sesame seed butter.
Yeah.
Y'all understand this? We did not practice that.
Yeah.
We did not practice that. The craziest thing is that McDonald's has not used that song and that jingle for over 15 plus years.
Wow.
But yet they did an amazing job of understanding their market. And what they also did in that song is they literally described the pieces of the Big Mac.
Yes, it is.
For the record, we did not practice that. I didn't tell them I was going to mention that. And that's what I'm saying. So whenever people think about the gecko, you automatically associate the gecko with
Geico.
Let's even go to another insurance person. What about Flo?
Progressive.
We can do this. What about that dude that's dunking like this? Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
We know about all these good brands. The brand itself is so huge. A lot of people simply know about him for the shoes, especially today's generation. They know about him with the shoes. But they really need to know that the way he got to the shoes is because he was a dynamic basketball player.
Right.
So collectively, that logo, that brand reflects an amazing basketball player and an amazing business partner. You got to understand that what he's doing right now is he's releasing the shoes that he released then. He just the exact same design. And now he's released them again. I've just purchased a pair of threes this past Christmas season that were released when I was in high school. I graduated in 93, bro.
And they're still selling them.
It's way more than they used to be. We used to complain about them being $100. $200 is nothing now.
Yeah.
Don't even talk about the resale market.
$800,000 is nothing now for some of these shoe companies.
That's what I'm saying. So when you're thinking about all these brands from a corporate perspective, what do you think? But most importantly, what do other people think about your brand?
Extremely important.
What do they see? What you think about it almost matters not.
True.
Because what's happening whenever your name comes up in a boardroom when the doors close and you're not part of it? Let's take it a step further before then. What happens when you walk into a boardroom? Are they happy to see you, or are they just tolerating you? You got to be honest with you where you are. You got to be in a position to assess where you are. Don't get it confused. Gregory Harrington has had some problems in his area himself. One time, one of my managers told me, Greg, I listened to some of your calls because I was on the sales team. And as I was on the sales team, one of the practices was to help you coach through your calls and your sales training. They'll listen and record to calls. She told me, Greg, you've been a little too curt. Imagine that, people. Imagine Greg Harrington being curt.
I can't.
I didn't even know how to spell it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a C. I know Curtis is a C-U-R-T. But the main piece is that I had to receive that as feedback from my manager. But the blessing is that she told me. The blessings that she allowed me to get honest feedback that allowed me to start adjusting how I communicated. Because if my brand is being curt with customers, the rule in sales is that people buy from who they like. If they don't like you, they will not buy from you. They do not trust you. They don't even want to talk to you.
Did you accept the criticism positively, or did you take it personally, or?
I took it as truth. I took it as truth, and it must be the case. So I changed it.
Okay.
I changed it. And under my branding, for specifically personal branding, I have a AAA approach. And the AAA approach is assess, adjust, apply. So you got to initially assess where you are. And fortunately, my manager was the one that matters because she's the one to write my performance reviews. I was blessed for her to feel comfortable enough to really coach me in the right way. Right? So that was my assessment. That was my assessment. And then the second one is I had to adjust it. If you don't like the brand that you currently have or the assessment, you have the ability to adjust it. But then after you make the adjustments, you definitely have to apply it. Let's imagine if I have this huge matter of fact, one of the things that comes up lately is that I started a business with using a cyber truck. By the way, if you're in Austin and you need some chauffeur services, call me because I got a cyber truck that I put on chauffeur services. Let's capitalize on it while the iron's hot. But if I tell nobody that I have a chauffeur service, will they ever call me?
No,
they won't. You know what I mean? Just like the same thing is the truth is whatever I have adjusted my brand. Remember, I was known as Kurt. The one, like, if I don't apply it, people still think that apply my change, people still think that I'm Kurt. So I need to be in a position to apply the new change. So that's kind of like where we are right now. I know that's the introduction to what personal branding and footprints behind it. We're gonna go way deeper in this power hour that we have with
y'all. So just to make sure that folks who are not in this space and some who are clear, what is your one sentence statement on what a brand is?
A brand is how other people view you.
Not how you view yourself.
Not how you view yourself. Oh, as far as I'm concerned, I could dunk. I'll give you 25. But when my whole self get on the court, we are winning in about 3 minutes. You know what I mean? Them 25 points ain't gonna come. You see what I'm saying? Is what other people view you. Go back to the example that we just gave y'all. We literally I started the song for McDonald's Big Mac.
Right.
And Brother Stewart and Brother Duncan finished it.
Correct. The song, yes.
And so that means that they were applying that branding. They were applying the marketing for their product. And the genius in that specific marketplace, they literally talked out the ingredients to their sandwich that still exists to this day. And so we have to be able to do the exact same thing.
Is what people think of you, otherwise your reputation. And it's what other people think, not what you think. Branding is your reputation. So why is, and we're talking at the individual level, as we have folks who are going to be watching this show tonight, tomorrow, next week, next year. Why is branding important? Somebody may say, you know what? I work for XYZ company. I got a job. I make good money. And you already kind of laid into this. Why is branding important to somebody who is working for a significant brand like a McDonald's, like an Apple, like a Coca-Cola?
Man,
how does it apply to them?
This is 1,000%, right? I think one of the best brands in America, in our world, is Apple. I don't have a single Apple product in my house, but my daughter wants it, and she just got an iPad for well, I guess not my product. She has an iPad. This is her second iPad. She has the AirPods. Apple, if you look at Apple's branding, they barely do anything abstract. They just basically show you the product and give you very vague information about the features that they have. They might highlight one feature that Android had yesteryear, but Android just simply doesn't do it. Matter of fact, the Samsung's phone, in my personal opinion, is way more capable than the iPhone. And all the Apple people come for me. But the reality of it all is Apple does a better job. And so therefore they have a bigger following than any other single phone brand, right? The reality of it all is whenever you're talking about your personal brand, it's important for you to understand that your brand is also dictating how high you can go, right? So the reality of it all is whenever you actually are thinking about being underpaid or you may have been overlooked, these are times whenever your brand is oftentimes off.
Okay.
So you mentioned two companies that are in the same space, Apple, which you don't have a product, but your daughter wants, and you mentioned Samsung. Both of them have a brand. Both of them are in the same place. Both of them compete with each other. How would you nuance the difference between Apple and Samsung as a brand?
Let's go that goes right into that same space. Both of them are very good phones. I'm never gonna say that. Now, me personally, I spend a lot of money on a lot of things, but a phone and the phone service is not one of them. Shout out to Mint Mobile. This phone is a Motorola that costs $249, maybe $200. I'm that guy. But don't get it confused because I'm technical. I look at all of the same features. This phone got 256 gigs of storage in it. Plus, I added a 2 terabyte SD card. You know, at the end of the day, I just can't pay for the big dollars. But the difference that you'll find between those two brands is that you'll see that Apple spends billions on marketing per year. When I say that's with a B, y'all. Billions. I don't know the number for Samsung, but we can all agree that they don't spend half the marketing dollars that Apple does. They don't come close because they have a value of applying the brand that they're so positive about. And of course, their following is the same way. Now, at the end of the day, whenever you're thinking about, you remember I told you that AAA, Apple has done a good job of that third A. They're applying their brand strategy. And we have to figure out different ways to do it as well. So let's go to the first one. The first A is you got to be able to get the assessment. We have to be honest with our feedback. And little do you know, the 360 review that people have on a regular annual basis is trash. I probably lost every HR person on this call. That
360 review, for people who don't know that, what is a 360 review?
So basically, the typical company has a 360 annual review where they will send a request for feedback about a certain person. So if it's my review, I will send it to Brother Stewart, I'll send it to Brother Tommy Duncan, I'll send it to other people that I work with. And sometimes the leader might have a certain number of people that they may send it to. Now, typically, it is all about us. So I will typically be the one that chooses the person I'm sending it to. All right. So, of course, I'm going to send it to people that I like and I think are going to give me positive reviews.
Right.
This is my current performance. This could potentially dictate my bonus. This could potentially dictate grade. We trying to make sure that stays where it is and continue to progress. I want to send it to the people that like me.
Correct.
If I have some disagreement with somebody that I'm constantly having disagreements, you think I'm going to send it to that person first? Absolutely not. Then go to the other side of it. If I'm receiving the request for feedback. The last thing I want to do is dog one of my guys that I work with.
Correct.
It is a peer review. So I'm definitely going to get it off my plate. That's the first thing. Try to be as expeditious as possible to get it off my plate. And of course, I'm gonna give this guy a positive review. And that happens all the time. And so you're not really honestly finding your blind spots in the process.
Gotcha.
Right? You're not finding the blind spots in that process. So you have to request the assessment. And the hope is that whenever you're asking for the assessment, one, it's not messing with your money. Nobody wants the money. This is just feedback that I'm going to internalize at this point to be able to see if it's what I like. And I want the raw feedback. Don't get it confused. Sometimes that raw feedback will sting. But I would rather get that raw feedback now when I have the ability to make a change versus being too late. So that's why I give my manager at the time a lot of love, because she told me to my face that, hey, you being too curt on the phone.
Gotcha.
You know, that's a blessing, because what happens when they come into the room and, hey, I think it's that time for us to go on a performance improvement plan, or you just out the door. It's too late then. So you want to be able to receive it. And the thing that's different about it is that you're in the state of mind to receive the negative feedback.
Gotcha. So let's just making sure that we're on track in terms of understanding why a brand is important, because it opens up opportunities. What else?
It opens up opportunities. It allows you to be more productive as a teammate, so that now you're able to be more effective with the people that you work with, whether it's your customers or whether it's your teammates on other teams, like cross team, your personal team. When you walk in the office, do you speak to people? You know what I mean?
Right.
Are you the one who consistently the thorn in everybody's side? But this is the piece that's even overlooked a lot of times. What about the person who doesn't say anything and possibly has a lot to share to give improvement to the success of the company? So you got the person that's like me, that's super extroverted, but then you got the other person way on the other side who's super introverted and never speaks out at any meeting, doesn't give his or her feedback, because they just want everything to just be smooth sailing. So at the end of the day, it's like both need the assessment, because what oftentimes will happen, those guys will get overlooked for being too much or too little. And this is not something that, and so whenever you want to do this, you want to be in a position to really get honest feedback from the people. And that in itself will allow you to be brought up with promotions, given opportunities to do more work, and also get the right payment that you feel like you're worthy of. So that's 100% why it's so impactful to a company. Like, you think about the productivity of a company, and I could put, if I had more people in the chat, I'll definitely say, everybody in the chat, call out that one person you hate to go to a meeting with. I was just on a call last night, and I have somebody who was horrible on that meeting.
Gotcha. So we were talking about someone who's an employee. Now let's talk about someone who is in business for themselves.
Yes. So let's talk about that. So let's go to somebody who's consistently in business for themselves. They always still have a customer.
Right.
They still always have a customer. Right? For example, there's a guy in Houston, and he's one of the few people that will fix a car's radio. Like, in one of my cars, the radio was going out, and the real cost of it to get replaced brand new was like $6,000.
Oh, for radio?
It's a Porsche.
Radio? No?
Radio. Brand new.
It was a bill, it's still a radio.
Radio.
Not a CD player, not DVD, a radio.
It has a CD player in it. It's a CD player in it. It's a CD player in it, but it didn't work. So long story short, he's the one person, and I live in Austin, he lives in Houston. Matter of fact, he comes highly recommended. So I call him. The good thing about it is he answers the phone. Answer the phone. But he is just as dry as he can be. He is, the word curt completely applies to him. He is no nonsense whatsoever. But remember, I need him, because I need my radio working, and I don't want to drop this 6,000. Right, so his price was 800. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I took it to him, and when I got there, at first time I just dropped it off, and so didn't get a chance, but still the same Kirk dude, but his expertise is at this level where he's known to fix these radios. But then the next time I went in, I had the opportunity to talk with him. Nice guy, but he is so no nonsense. No nonsense. And he probably don't even know he's doing it. And if you go online, a lot of the people that left him feedback online were saying this exact same thing. I don't really typically use too many. Something got to really make me upset for me to give a bad review about somebody. But the reality of it all is this is a perfect example of that was his business. And I'm almost certain that he was losing a lot of business because of the fact that he did not understand his brand. He did not understand his brand. So now he may not care, but that's a whole situation where kind of going what you just said, Brother Duncan, he is an entrepreneur. Let's go to the other one. Let's go to the other ones, one that we deal with all the time. They're an individual person. They don't make no money unless they sell a house. The realtor.
Correct.
There are a number of different things that go into a realtor. They're one of my best people to speak to because they are one-on-one with the customer, and a lot of times they're together in a small confined space such as a vehicle. Let's talk about that whole dynamic. One, did you even show up on time? Did you show up on time? Did you provide products and services that warrant your commission for the sale? Does your car that you asking me to get in, is your car at least clean?
Decent, clean, yes. Very important.
All these things can prevent you from getting a referral. True. Let's assume I tolerate this bad experience. But your hope is that I refer you to the next person. But if you weren't helpful and you feel like I had to constantly call you versus you giving bad customer service, will I refer you? The hope is that as a customer, I will always be willing to refer people I deal with. And as a consumer, I want to push the business. But if they're horrible, you know how it is. If you refer somebody to somebody, the person you refer to, your friend gonna call you to complain about the person.
Something goes wrong. That's correct.
That's going like man, just call them. I recently did this to a friend of mine getting tent service, and he's like, man, this dude's trash. And so I like, man, so I had to be the liaison between the two to get his tent. Like, the day of the tent and the whole next week, the bubbles never went away, and this is when a fresh install. So I had to be the middle ground person to get this corrected. So you think my friend's gonna refer him? No, he's not. And so at the end of the day, it's like this is why it's so important for your personal brand, especially as an entrepreneur, to be outstanding. Whenever I do speaking engagements like this, whenever I'm doing a master of ceremony, whenever I'm doing workshops, at a minimum, I probably pad about 2 hours to physically get to a location just to make sure I'm on time.
Wow. Just
in case I get stopped by the police, an accident happens. I'm not joking, man. I'd rather be early than late.
True that.
And so my target time is to get to the space an hour ahead of time. Because the one thing I want that event planner to do is call me again.
What is the frequency, Brother Harrington? How often should you get this assessment done?
Oh man, I think the truth be
told, between the personal assessment and your business assessment, but how frequently should both get them done? You think?
I think the main there's no set time. I'll say that, but the best perfect time to do an assessment is you feel like you're not getting the results that you want. You know what I mean?
I mean, everybody can use more business. Everybody can use a bigger pay raise, a bigger bonus. So I mean, you ask me, I never get what I deserve. So that means I need to get this done.
I mean, I get you an assessment. I'll assess you. So this is what this is a real good question. So let's talk about it. Let's do in some companies, for example, the company I used to work for, Dell.
Mm-hmm.
You had sometimes where you had to be enrolled for 12 months before you could even be qualified to promote. And then the other one is 18 months, depending on the role, right? And so if you're trying to get to the next level of promotion, at a minimum, you should be understanding where you are and also where you want to go.
Right.
So the way that you get to where you want to go is you literally should be at a minimum trying to get to the next person's short list 6 months before the end of that 18 months, 6 months before that 12 months. Because what you're doing is, let's assume I'm in Tommy's team and I'm trying to go to JR's team, right? What I want to do is I want to be setting up one-on-ones with you 6 months ahead of time because I want to, first of all, understand my gaps. And these could be some legitimate gaps that I may have, right? But during that 6 months time, my goal is to become the short list. And by doing the short list, one, have I proven all these small intangibles? Have I shown up on time? When I showed up, was I prepared for the discussion, or did I just say, hey, teach me? Right? The book that Tommy alluded to is a book that I have that I should be publishing this year. It's called The Softer Side of Success. I call it S cubed. And in that book, I talk about the value of a mentor, the value of how you're supposed to show up on a one-on-one. What is a one-on-one? All these things are your branding for Mr. Stewart, because I'm going to him to get a job. If I show up raggedy, Mr. Stewart, that's my first impression. He gonna think that I'm showing up late.
Right.
He gonna think I'm gonna always show up late.
Right.
If I just come to the meeting and I'm not prepared for the meeting and just tell Mr. Stewart, teach me. Well, help him to help you, sir. I'm trying to learn about your job and the role that this is where I have been. And so I need to know, like, specifically in your task, where do you think I need to be? What skill sets do I need to have? So you're equally talking about the dynamic as well. Does that make sense? You're talking about, you're the one who's really leading it, but you definitely are there to gain knowledge from that person. But equally, you're trying to gain an advocate for that person. You may have a certification that you need to procure before you can join his team, right?
Right.
You may, even if it's not a certification that you need to have, it may just be, let's get more familiar with the terminology in this new organization. Let's get more familiar with the tools. So now Mr. Stewart, who's the hiring manager, could potentially recommend me to go do some shadowing with who might be my peer in that organization, who's already familiar with the tools, who can close that gap. That in itself is part of this personal brand. But you can shoot yourself in the foot before you can have an opportunity to get to a positive brand.
True.
Personal brand can already be tarnished because the small things haven't been done. You know what I mean? And so go back to that realtor that you're talking about. I have a guy that I refer a lot of people to because he does low to no down payments. But the reality of it all is he oftentimes does not do a good job of helping throughout the entire process. And so that's his brand. That's his brand. You know what I mean? But the reality of it is he specializes in low to no down payment. So whereas there's not too many other guys that do that. And so the reality of it all is you got to be in a position to understand what's more important to you and how you can get the success. So either way, let's go. Yeah.
So let's make sure that we break this down for folks who may not have been intentional. Folks who are in business, you have a brand because you have a reputation. And people who are around you, people who know you, know what their reputation is. How does one go about building or architecting a brand? And we're talking about an individual, whether they are working for someone or they are an entrepreneur or working for themselves. What are the core elements and how do you build a brand?
Well, let's talk about it. I think it's important to understand the one thing that we want is a positive brand.
Correct.
So that's what we want to do. We want to have because you can have a brand, but does everybody know? Let's do this little exercise again. Do you all know the brand, the logo that had the crooked E? Y'all remember that crooked E that was on there? That
One of the banks.
it was Enron.
Gotcha.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Gotcha. So I mean, because
I mean, that's a brand.
Yeah,
that's a brand, but it's a bad brand.
Yeah, this is the point. Everybody has a brand, but how do you build and architect intentionally
a positive
brand. A positive brand. There we go.
A positive brand. So this is what it is. So the first one is definitely absolutely. Let's go. We talked about the assessment. You got to get there. You got to know where you are. You got to know where you are. And oftentimes, like I say, if my brand is determined by other people, then I need to get the feedback from other people.
Right.
That fair? So now that I have this feedback, I now need to say, oh man, Greg talked too much. Right? So I need to take that as real feedback, because now remember, since I asked for the feedback, I can't be mad whenever I get some feedback that I don't like. Because I'm in a space of trying to control my own brand and building the brand that I want. Oh, that's something no, that's not what I like. That's not what I like. So what I want to do is I need to figure out different ways to adjust that brand. And when I adjust that brand, I now have the ability to say, okay, well, I don't know. Let's say, for example, an example I gave earlier, the tools. Well, you don't have the tools right. You're not good at reporting. So guess what I need to do? I need to get better in reporting. Or man, you're too combative. That's one of the words I got before. Mm-hmm. You're combative. And it was true. I had to receive it for what it was. It's true. So I had to calm down some of the way I talk. Even something that's even not as harsh, but it's a truth that could hold you back. Like one of the things when I was doing with this speaking thing, I've been doing the speaking thing for a long time. I have a lot of energy that I want to portray on the stage. But I had to receive the feedback through some of my coaching. I took a training and they were recording me. And they pointed out, they replayed whenever they give me feedback. You see all this hand motion you're doing right now? That's distracting. That may take away from the powerful words that you're already saying. And so I had to receive that for what it is and adjust the way I present it. I'm thinking that, coming from, let's be 1000%, man. Sometimes us coming from church, we feel like we got to hit them like a preacher does. And it's not not necessary all the time. You know what I mean? So you don't have to be preaching to people to get your point across, right? And so now that you have the assessment, you have the ability to adjust it. And so the way I adjust it is you get into spaces where you learn how to do the job, right? You learn how to do the job. And then the other piece now, the second last part is the apply, right? The apply is the brag-along. So the part where you adjusting is because you're getting a training, and now you have to interact with those people in a more positive way, right? So your brag-along is a book that Peggy Klaus has written. The name of the book is called Brag: How to Toot Your Own Horn Without Blowing It. And in Peggy Klaus's book, she talks about creating a brag-along. And what the brag-along basically is, it is helping you to help yourself. So teaching you how to talk about, some people will call it an elevator pitch, but what I take is the elevator pitch going to the next level. The elevator pitch going to the next level says, in this elevator from first floor to the second floor, or while I'm in the coffee line, I'm telling you about myself. The part that's different between the elevator pitch and the brag-along, not only am I telling about myself, but what I want you to do with this information. So basically, help me to help you. So if you're telling me this information, help me to help you. And remember, I only got this time I'm in line at the coffee line in the cafeteria, right? I only got this elevator ride up. Hey man, my name is Gregory Harrington, and I've been checking out your organization, and this is what I do, and I would love to get more time on your calendar to learn more about your organization.
So this methodology that you're outlining, it seems to me that you have to repeat it in order to see if you're making progress or not. I know one of the matrix that you mentioned is, are you getting the results in life that you want? That was one of the matrix. And you could decide whether your brand needs adjustment or not, but it seems like you need to constantly check on your brand. Even if everything is good, you may still need to go through the process of assessing, adjusting, and applying, like you said, in order to measure whether the previous process that you went through has been effective or not. Are you making
Exactly.
progress? Are you not making progress? Or you may be making the progress, but not for the right reason. You may think it's for the right reason, but until you get the feedback, the assessment, where someone may point out something different. So you may have made progress with the hands going all over the place, but now it's too many uhs and too many ahs, or it's too many jokes. So it's something else. And if you don't repeat the process, wash, rinse, repeat, then you may not know how clean the clothes are. Excuse me, how clean the clothes actually are. So can you speak to that repeat process?
Yep. What you're calling about is brand atrophy.
Okay.
Brand atrophy. And if you think about the brand atrophy, I ripped my Achilles and notice that S on the back of it. Achilles. I should have said Achilles because it's both of them.
Uh-huh.
I ripped one of them playing basketball in 2005, and I was off. I was non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. Non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. I ripped my other one in 2013. I was only non-weight bearing for 1 week. We are now in 2024. My calf muscle on my left leg is still substantially smaller than the one on my right leg, the one I ripped in 2013, because I simply did not use my muscle. The same is true when it comes down to your brand. If you don't use it, you will absolutely lose it.
Okay.
And so that's why that brag-along, one, you have to define it. So that's the part of the adjustment. So creating a brag-along is part of the adjustment part. And then you have to apply the brag-along by sharing it. And the thing that's so important in these conversations, what I call a bad brand and some of the features in a bad brand that cause them is the diplomatic version or the sitting iron. The diplomatic version is basically, okay, you're a little more cordial with people, you're more compromising in conversations, you're not overbearing. Whereas a sitting iron, have you ever wondered whenever you're ironing your clothes, you can go back and forth all day with a hot iron, the same temperature iron, and your clothes don't get burnt because you're going back and forth this person's idea, you're going over here to see this person's idea, then you sit right here in the middle on your own idea. Guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna burn your clothes.
Fine.
And so I call that a sitting iron. That's your brand sometimes. So you can't be a sitting iron in this space called corporate America, or a sitting iron in spaces called group discussions. And those are where I say group discussions, because group discussions don't have to be professional. This could be with the fraternity. This could be with the nonprofit. This could be with your family members, right? And so at the end of the day, these are some of the things you're sitting on because you're trying to press your agenda forward and you're never trying to hear anybody else's, right? But you want that diplomatic approach because that's where you have more productivity in your meetings. And so that's when you're talking about it from the adjusting. This is how so your assessment, you may be assessed as a sitting iron, but you want to be in a position to be diplomatic. So if you've gotten a tag to say you're a sitting iron, you want to be in a position to transition from the sitting iron to diplomatic approach, right?
Who do
So
you listen to doing these assessments? How do you qualify? When a person comes to me and say, "Well, Jimmy, I want you to get some feedback on, because I'm working on my personal brand and I like to think, hear what you think about my work performance, my business." How do you qualify that person to be that person to be that assessment, that feedback? It
so
can't be anybody. I mean, it has to be. You have to be
okay.
able to weed out and
And that's it's so hard because if somebody asks me for referrals, majority of the time I'm gonna give them a good referral. But I'm gonna give them a good letter of recommendation. I don't want nobody to write a letter of recommendation for me, and it's horrible. And so, whenever you're talking about the business side of it, it's a tough journey. Now, don't get it confused.
Mhm.
Those who do bad business, it's gonna nowadays we got this thing called the internet. It's gonna show its face.
Folks will write a review on your heartbeat, man.
It's
It
gonna
doesn't
write
take much.
and it's like even the same in situations in like YouTube videos. It's got people at the bottom of it. Some just trash. Don't you got to ignore it? But they're in the midst of some of the commentary. Sometimes you have positive things that you can grow from. You know what I mean? So, but the way that I do my assessments, I typically, as a coach, what I do is I talk to them about their process of what's going on. Because typically, whenever you're talking to them about there and they comfortable with you, some pieces are going to show up.
Right.
So you know what I mean? Some pieces will absolutely show up. And so now you have an opportunity to coach them into finding different spaces, right? And so you'll think about different styles. People say personality traits and Briggs Myers and other different personality traits. I don't take those into consideration as the personal brand. That's a personal trait. And the personal brand in this space is basically what other people think about you. The personal traits are from a system that shows these different things from a test. You know what I mean? Whereas this is like literally feedback of how people view you. You know what I mean? Raw feedback. So the next thing is now. So let's go to the third A, the apply. When you go to the apply part, how do you have the opportunity to apply your newly developed brand, your new positive brand? I have an acronym called NINE. NINE, networking in natural environments. So nine, networking in natural environments. And with the networking in natural environments, what that does is basically saying, I am in an environment where I don't necessarily even have to prove my skill set, but I have to prove that I'm likable. I have to still, I don't have to, I'm still making connections with people. So the reason why a lot of people are thinking about, a lot of times you think about people on a golf course is because the golf course is a natural environment, right? I'm not trying to get you to give me a 30-page essay on what you do on the golf course. But if you have good habits on the golf course and you have good communication, I'm building my brand because you're just simply likable, right? Do you have good etiquettes on the golf course, right? Same is true if you playing basketball. Are you the one that's calling foul every time the wind blow by you? You know what I mean? Or what about whenever you make, like, one of the best examples I have is I have a friend of mine who, when she first joined the company, we had like a community service event, and we met at the community service event, and we just talking. I was already been in the company; she was fairly new to the company, so we just broke conversation. So through the years, we would see each other from time to time. We participated together in other community events, and then out the blue one time, she's like, "Greg, we have a manager role that's going to be open. I think you'll be great for it." And this is in the cafeteria by the soda machine, right? She didn't have to say much. I say less, right? And so I follow up with the hiring manager, and he talked to me. He said, "Well, some of the people going to be the ones who's going to push you through." And I interviewed for that one. I did not get that management role, but as a result of following up for that management role, getting feedback, I was able to adjust. Oh my God, I made a huge adjustment.
Okay.
In the interview, I thought I said something that's going to take me here, but that statement I made took me way down here.
Ouch.
When I say I was in my feelings why I didn't get that role, and I thought I slayed the interview, but I said something I thought I was going to kill it. I thought I was way up here, and that thing that's what I thought I was closing out that means something else, it took me way down here.
Mm.
So the feedback that I got is that I didn't understand the stage, right? So now I had an opportunity because I followed up with that interview, I found out about another manager position open, and I definitely adjusted.
Okay.
And fortunately, I got that role. The person that I was telling you about, I never had worked with her in a real capacity. 9, networking in a natural environment.
All right, so let me do this because we have about 10 minutes left in the show. I want to acknowledge a couple of other folks that has joined us on the chat line. I want to thank them. Brother Frederick V. Roberts, I want to thank him out of Prairie View, Texas. I want to thank him for joining us this evening and tuning into the show. We have Dominique Vinings out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. I want to thank her for joining us on the show as well. She actually spent some time in Austin as well. Met her through National Sales Network. And we do have a comment that was made by cousin Audrey K, who actually made this a little bit earlier, but she said, you mentioned quiet people versus vocal people. She said most quiet people are very secure people. Oftentimes they observe, yet may not offer their perspective due to conflicting egos. Therefore, they know when to be on different energy frequencies. And she also made another statement: when people feel the experience based upon consistency and integrity, they share their experience.
That's good. And you see what she said is like sometimes they say they offer that, therefore they know when to be different energy frequency. The challenge oftentimes is that sometimes they never turn it on.
Right.
Sometimes they never turn it on. And if they never turn it on, then that's where the problem is. And like I say, the reason why there's a conversation of diversity and equity and inclusion from a business perspective is that we want all opinions brought to the table. And that's really where the business side of it is, whether you're from whatever background. Like you can get 3 black men right here, and we all have different views on different subjects, right?
Just had Marion Square join in on the chat line. I want to thank Miss Square for joining the chat line as well. And for anyone out there who is on the chat line, if you have any questions or comments, since we have maybe 5 minutes before we have to wrap everything up, want to open this opportunity to you now so that the show won't be over. And then you said, well, can you answer me this question? And we gone.
So, I should have asked the question.
All right. So why don't we do this? Let's kind of start wrapping this up because we have about 8 minutes left in the show. You mentioned something a little bit earlier I want to get your clarification from our audience. You mentioned someone saying, or you interpreting, understanding the stage. This is after you didn't get the opportunity you were looking for, and you mentioned understanding the stage. What does that mean in layman's terms?
Oh, man. So long story short story long, whenever you're interviewing for a leadership position, I thought that my first time being in an official manager role, I can talk about some of the quote unquote HR things that I had to deal with in a leadership role in the community. I thought that these are things that would have taken me to this higher level and separate me from other guys who may not have had this community leadership. However, it was a quote unquote HR issue that I thought my way of dealing with it would have proved to them that I'm ready to deal with other HR issues in a real world. However, what I learned is that unless they specifically bring up those tough HR issues, such as any kind of assault, harassment, any kind of termination, whether it's a firing or a layoff, you don't bring it up.
Okay, good advice.
I brought it up.
You volunteered.
And I thought that it was going to separate me way up here. It did the exact opposite. You may say, how do you know that it did the exact opposite? Remember that hiring manager I told you he wasn't going to be in the interview? He was not in the interview.
But he's
the one that told me that I said this.
So they were talking about you after the interview. The word had gotten around. The damage was done at that point. Now you really have to correct it.
Preach.
Yes.
It's funny, I keep talking about this soda machine in this cafeteria because I got the good news about the job opportunity, but he also gave me that exact same feedback in the same cafeteria. I couldn't even eat my food because I had done it. When I tell y'all I had killed that interview, some of the interview panelists were on I follow up with them. They were asking for some of the books I mentioned in my interview. I killed the interview, positive. But I killed myself too. So once again, I wasn't ready for the stage.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? Because I didn't. And I talked to some managers, like my manager and my second line manager were really good mentors of mine. And I went to them and I told them what I said. They did this face.
They cringed.
They call it hot tamales. They say you don't talk about hot tamales. Some hot tamales you just don't bring up.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I had to learn this. Because I just simply didn't know. So once again, sometimes you're just not ready for the stage. Now, this is an example for me, but it may be something substantially more smaller and not as big as this, right? But the piece that's crazy is that sometimes you may not get the feedback and you keep doing it.
All right.
You see what I'm saying?
It's really bad. You don't get the feedback and you keep doing it. Damaging your
How raw was that? You see what I'm saying? That's raw feedback that I needed to progress. You see what I'm saying? If I wasn't receptive of the feedback, if I didn't have guys who was truth tellers in my life, I would not have gotten that next job that I had the opportunity to get. This was a huge promotion for me at the time.
And how many of us are so dejected after not getting the promotion that we give up? That we don't even try. We don't do what you did, was find out what went wrong, make some adjustments, apply it to your life, and then go for it again. We just throw in the towel and give up. Now that bad experience, branding-wise, becomes who we're known for now because you didn't fix it. That's all that's left with people with your last assessment that was done with them. So the process of assessing, adjusting, applying has to be done over and over and over so you can measure the results, see if you can make adjustments. Like you said, if you're not getting the results that you want in life, then it may just because you have a bad brand and you don't even know it.
Didn't even know it. And when I tell you that example was a perfect one, so I'm glad you came back to that one, Tommy. You ain't let me walk past that. You ain't let your boy walk past that.
No.
That was when I tell you that's the 3 A's right there. I got the assessment. I got further assessment by confirming with other leaders that I trust.
Okay.
I definitely adjusted and I applied it on the next interview.
All right.
And so Herman got a question. I don't know if we need
to ask.
Yes,
he does. We got 2 minutes, so we're going to have to get to this response and then we got to move. What did you learn about the back to school parade in Austin about brand? And that comes from Herman Winston. We want to thank him for joining us on the chat line.
Thank you, my good frat brother. By the way, all of us A5, all of us represent A5 on the call. A5.
All right.
That's right. That's a good brother right there, brother Herman Winston. So, man, for the back to school parade, for those who may not who may not know, Herman Winston was in Austin at the time. I founded an organization called Back to School Parade.
And we got to do the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, and so the mission is to celebrate education and the return to school in the form of parade, and to use the proceeds to purchase school supplies for those who need it. The Cliff Notes version of what I learned about the Back to School Parade is that my vision was to have a celebration. The world's vision was that we were in the midst of a potential recession and families needed help with the backpacks. So the backpacks that we gave away outweighed the celebration.
Okay, great.
So we had to basically almost scale back the celebration and focus on
the
backpacks, because we had families we had like 76% of our constituents who were living in poverty. You know what I mean? With 3 to 4 plus children per home. So that's the Cliff Notes of it. But the one thing that I did get from a brand perspective is that we were doing a great work. We were scratching where it really itched, but it was just once again, the assessment had to change from what I thought the need was and the community thought the need was.
All right. Well, we appreciate you. Of course, we're going to have you back later on or sometime this year, not late this year, but later in the year to talk about another topic. We want to thank you very much. Of course, we know you'll do well. We wish you the best of luck. And Folks, if you enjoyed this show, if you learned something, please share it with those who you think could get value from it. Because every week, month to month, we're going to be bringing value. And of
Yes,
course,
you are.
if it's Wednesday night, Jimmy,
It's certainly Black Men Speak.
good night, everyone.